doing things that I'm not supposed to be able to do. I taught myself how to play the piano. I teach myself I love to learn things. And the only way you can do that is by challenging yourself. You have to fail in order to succeed.
Welcome back to Failure. Thanks again for joining us. Thanks for supporting us. This is the place, as you know, where, as they say, success has many fathers and failure has none. Well, failure has a father now, and it's here. And we're very lucky to have an incredibly talented gentleman who has become a friend, I'm lucky to say, but who is a comedian extraordinaire, an actor extraordinaire, who has transcended, I'll call it, kind of 3 walks of entertainment, and pushing into being a movie star very soon, us together, hopefully. Mr. King Bach.
There he is.
Himself, no, King Bachelor. Very lucky, though, to have someone who's built just a career in one of the hardest fields.
Thanks for having me.
Really,
this is dope.
Really appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
And it's been cool getting to know you. We've been working on some projects together over the last couple of years, and they're coming to fruition. And it's been really exciting to kind of work with you and see how committed you are to really to your career, but to the life that you've created. It's something that a lot of people don't realize takes how much work that takes.
Yeah, and I know this is about failure, but our projects, we can't fail on those. Well, I think the projects that we do, we can't fail. All the failure happened before, so now we can succeed.
Well, I like to think that this will be project with you. I think we'll be project thinking it goes right when I think it goes 252. So hopefully I failed enough on the 251.
Yeah.
No, but
and then we did Shot Caller.
Oh yeah, so
that's relativity. Yeah.
So there you go. There you go.
And that was successful, right?
We made a lot of money.
There we go.
Like, the word failure means a lot of things to a lot of people, and it's something that on this show we've actually debated a lot. Like, we had Nigel on the show, who created American Idol and So You Think You Can Dance, and he hates the word failure. He was like, for the show, like, you can't call it failure because you can't fail as long as you're still trying, as long as you're still alive. And he's not wrong. But the idea is, and what we're trying to show the world, and you're a big part of this, you understand it, is the kids today. When I say the kids, I'm in my late 40s, so a lot of people are kids now.
Right.
It makes you feel freaking old. But I even see, I see my 8-year-old scrolling on YouTube. Like, everything's so immediate, and so like, oh, look how easy it is. Like, you just do this little thing, and I all of a sudden I'm getting a Lamborghini and a mansion, and the hottest girl or guy, and money, and people kind of feel like if I don't have that, I'm not doing something right, i.e. failing. And it really is what led for me to do the show, which was that I realized there wasn't a lot of people out there wanting to talk about the fact that if you succeeded, and you've really succeeded in any facet of life, in your case, obviously, starting with social media, going into comedy, going into acting, you failed, and you failed a lot. And that, by failing, it means what you tried didn't work. You had a goal, you set it, you didn't hit that goal, you fell down, you got back up. And that's the most important thing, is you fell down and got back up. And it goes to this saying we have of Churchill, Churchill's saying of man in the arena, which the short, condensed version of the quote, which is what I live my life by, is that it's better to be in that arena, being the man that's covered in dust and blood and marred in sweat and tears, and to err and failed and come up short time and time again, than to never have felt defeat nor success. And so that's the point of this show, is to talk about those moments of failure and what we've learned and how those are the moments that defined us.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just start out by asking you, like, in your life, obviously you've had a ton of success, and generally that's what's talked about. What do you remember as like your first big failure in life? Like the biggest one you can remember earliest on?
Well, I want to start off by saying there's a certain amount of people who actually, I believe you have to fail in order to succeed, right? Like, if I do something and I nail it off the jump, I'm actually mad because I believe in beginner's luck, and I believe like, damn, I don't know what I did right that made that work. You know what I mean? So that's my way of thinking about things. And I like to challenge my brain by doing things that I'm not supposed to be able to do. I taught myself how to play the piano. I teach myself how to. I love to learn things, and the only way you can do that is by challenging yourself. You have to fail in order to succeed. So I would say, and also to say on that is, the younger you are, the more you hate failing because you don't understand it. You want to be great. You don't like that feeling of losing. The older you get, the more you accept it. Oh, this is reality. You have to fail to succeed. You have to. It's not failing. You're learning. You're learning what to do. So I think my earliest failures when I knew what I wanted to do was I wanted to be an actor when I was maybe like 12 years old. I was like, I want
That's
to be
young.
an actor. Yeah.
You knew at 12.
Yeah. Didn't see anything until I was 23. So I've been trying since I was 12, right? And I'll even go, like, I was trying to get into my school plays. I couldn't even get into my school play at all.
Wow.
Nothing.
Wow.
And every year I stuck with it. I didn't make the school play. I got like a cameo in something at the school like singing thing. And then I remember moving from middle school to in 8th grade. There was a guy named, oh, he might see this, Marco Chan. I don't know where he at.
Marco, if you're out there.
Marco Chan. It was me and him. We were gonna be actors, right? Every year, 8th grade, actor. 9th grade, actor. 10th grade, he didn't want to be an actor anymore. He changed. Like, that's how it happens. There's all these people who have these dreams and these visions, and it falls off. You can't give up. You have to go through that failure. You have to learn. Every year is a learning thing. So, yeah, I would say my first failure was when I was trying my hardest to get into that school play and I couldn't get in.
So what's really crazy about that, like I'm big into science and physics. I talk a lot in the show about physics just because it's like been my hobby my whole life, and relativity, which was obviously the name of one of my prior companies, which is obviously a scientific, kind of concept that's constructed really everything we know of today. If you think of the relative nature of what you said, when you were 12 is when you saw your first failure, but it continued until you were 21, you said?
23.
23. So that means that you spent, by the time you were 23, 50% of your life failing.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Damn, if you put it like that, I guess I am a failure.
But those are the things that, like, and I think we were just talking about this before the show, like when we had on Chris Johnson, who was talking about the best players in the NBA, the guys who make over $5 million a year, the highest shooters make 30% or less of their shots, right? That means they fail 70% of the time.
Yeah.
So I like to put it in perspective for people, because when you really like think about that, right? So you got right to the heart of it. You're like 12 years old. This is what I knew I wanted to do with my life. And clearly, looking where you are today, you did it. Like, more than did it. Like, you've arrived. Like, now it's just about how big. But you then went on and spent exactly the amount of years you were alive, from 12 to 24, another 12 years failing at what you knew you wanted to do before you finally made it, and not giving up. And that's the whole point, is like, you felt defeat, you felt falling down, you felt as we said, the blood and sweat and tears, and just that feeling of like, but you got back up, you were the man in the arena, right?
Right.
So what would you say if you had to give like, and a lot of this is to try and help people, because everybody feels that, right? And people don't realize everybody's failing. People don't realize everybody's hurting. People don't realize, like, we're all just the same. Like, everybody next to us, as we had Rabbi Leader on the show, who was just saying, like, everybody's in pain and you don't realize that. To help those people who are like going through their own form of failure right now, or that 12-year-old or 14-year-old who, whether it's acting or football or whatever they want to do, that they're not succeeding at and they're about to give up. Like, what was it inside of you that you can really remember or think about, that if you had to tell someone was that driving force?
For me, and everyone's different, you have to find what that is. If you're spiritual, maybe you believe in that, and maybe it's like, God, this is God's purpose for you. Manifestation, I kind of believe in both, in a way. I told myself, like, I believe that intuition and feeling is actually your future self letting you know like this is what you're going to be. So when I was 12 years old, I had no idea what like I wanted to be an actor. It's just a feeling I had. And maybe that's my present self sending these signals back to my younger self like, yo, this is the life that you want to do. This is what's going to make you happy. You're not going to be happy doing a 9-to-5 job. So there was something in me that just said, no matter how much I fail, I'm going to keep on working, keep on doing it. So I think you have to find what that is, what your purpose is. And if you find what you actually think is your purpose, you're going to fight no matter what you have to do. You'll have nights where you're cold, where you have nowhere to sleep. You're like, this is my purpose. I'm going to fight for it. And you got to figure it out. Like if one thing doesn't work, cool. Scratch that off, find another thing, keep going. You told me the story about the light bulb. He found, what was it,
9,991 ways not to make a light bulb.
Yeah.
Edison.
Yeah, and then he found the way that worked. So it's like, if you're gonna give up, you don't. Like, just keep on fight. Find something within you. Find something to fight for, whether it be your family. Some people, they turn another gear when they have children. Then it's like, oh shit, I gotta fight for my kids. So now I'm gonna definitely make it to work. I have a friend, we do stand-up together, and a lot of nights he's not coming on, and I'm doing stand-up almost every night, right? Just grinding and working the craft to get my special, my hour special this year. And I have one of my friends, he wasn't as focused. As soon as he had his baby and the bill started to come up, he's like, oh shit, I need to get on the road so I can make more money. So it's like, there's some people, they need something to happen to turn on that light bulb. So, yeah.
And in that 12-year span, do you remember any one particular point where you just like you were just going, oh man, this is like where you almost gave up and something in you like stopped it? And
Yeah.
so like, what was that?
100%. You have, my parents didn't think it was possible because I lived in Florida, right? And I have no connections to the industry. So my parents were always like, you don't know Will Smith. That's what they said. They said,
You don't know
how are
Will
you going to
Smith."
make it? You don't know Will Smith. That's what they told me.
That's the best line I ever heard. You're not gonna make it out. You don't know Will Smith.
That's what they said. You don't know Will Smith, because we used to watch Fresh Prince all the time.
Yeah, that's gotta be the best line ever.
Yeah, right. So we didn't have money to move myself out to California. It was all of that. So you have that fighting against you. Then you have the kids in school. We're like, you want to be a movie star, and in Florida, it's like, if you want to be an actor, that's not a real job.
Yeah,
What are you talking about? You want to be an actor? No, you want to be a doctor. You want to be a lawyer. You want to be an engineer. That's what you want to be. So when I would tell kids in school that I wanted to be an actor, they was like, oh, look at this fairy. That's what they would call me. They would call me a fairy.
I believe it.
So, and it's Florida, so they ruthless.
Yeah, they don't care.
They don't care.
My parents live there. I know. It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it got to a point where I had my dreams and I had to keep it to myself, because the moment that I would speak it out, people were trying to dismiss it. So it became a point where I knew what my goal was, and I had to keep it in my head and just go through the path. I had to get through middle school, get through high school, get through college. When I got to college, that's when I started to enroll myself in the different programs. So I would do this thing called 30 and 60, where we perform 30 skits in 60 minutes.
Wow.
Based off of crowd suggestions. And these are extracurricular activities. I'm doing school, I'm on the track team, and I'm taking my time, because I know what my dream and I know what my purpose is, to enroll myself in these programs. So I did 30 and 60, 30 skits in 60 minutes. I did another group called Black Actors Guild, where all the people who were African American who wanted to partake in acting, we would perform dramatic sketches around campus. I found out the film program. I found who the directors were in the film program. I was like, hey, can I do a cameo in your short film? I'm hustling because I knew what my dream was. So yeah, it was a lot.
Wow. So you hit on like 50 different things in there that I want to come back to.
Yeah,
We went deep fast. So there's so much in that like 12-year period, because you're going from, at 12 you're in 7th grade, I guess, right? So you're going from junior high to high school to college to post-college. So like, that's like a lifetime to a lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. It's like 2 lifetimes to a lot of people. When you think about like that's the most growing up you probably do in your whole life, until, at least for me, you have kids, right?
Yeah.
So, like in that, you were talking about kind of how you had to keep things to yourself because a lot of people didn't want to, like, they'd like call you a fairy or whatever, you know. But and did you know at the time it was because people are like jealous or don't understand it, or did you like, you know, how did you deal with the negativity? Because that's the other thing that you know is so prominent in today's world is people, you know, as I kind of call it, they love to be professional trolls. They love to, you know, shit on other people's dreams, and they can't wait to hate. What was the thing that got you through that? Because obviously, not only did you not let it affect you, you realize you're like, ah, fuck it, I just won't talk about it. They can have their own things, and it didn't stop you.
Right. Yeah.
So like, what was the thing that helped you the most with that?
And I think at that age, at that young age, and you're in high school, you're in middle school, you have to adapt. No one wants to get bullied. You know, if you wear, if you tuck in your shirt, you know, someone's gonna bully you. What do? You just untuck your shirt so you don't get bullied. So it was, I adapted to that lifestyle. I adapted like, oh, okay, if I say I want to do this, then they, you know, they're gonna make fun of me and do this. So if anybody asked me what I wanted to do, I was like, oh, I want to be in finance. So,
but you still inside never gave up. So you know, a lot of people do succumb to peer pressure, right? Especially
Marco Chan. You know that
Marco. I mean, look at what you could have been, Marco. No, but you know, it especially at that age, right? 12, 13, 14, 15. That's 16, 17, 18, all the way through, even at 20. Those are the most impressionable ages, right? Those are the ages. There's a reason that's where, like, you know, whether you talk about like terrorist organizations or gangs, that's why they like recruit from those ages, you know, or cults or whatever, because people are the most impressionable. So somehow though, you knew, right? No matter what people told you, your parents were telling you, nah, you can't do it. You don't know Will Smith. Your friends are telling you, you know, no, you're a fairy, you can't do it. Like, so instead of like, listen, you're like, I'm just not going to say anything to them because I don't want them to call me that. But you stayed undeterred. Like, so
yeah,
I'm trying to like, so that people who are going through any of that right now, whether it's being bullied for something they want to do, or they're not making it, or they've tried and tried again, and it could be in anything, right? This could be someone who's going into finance, or who's,
wants to start their own restaurant.
Wants to start their own restaurant, and you know, failed, and because you know, 90% of restaurants fail. So a lot of people who are successful restaurateurs today have had 30 fail in a row first, right?
Yeah.
So like, what is that special thing in there that no matter what, even though you adapted, as you said, to the situation around you, you still never changed inside?
The people who are going through it will be the most powerful in the end. Like if you start failing at an early age and you figure out how to get past it, you'll be powerful. And because what happens is you have to figure out a unique way to succeed. You know what I mean? It's if you're trying to start a restaurant, figure out a unique way. Like Kazunori, for instance, it's, you know, we have a bunch of sushi restaurants in LA. Kazunori is a sushi place, but it's only hand rolls. People go there, people love it. It's very successful. It's unique. So it's just finding unique ways to make it in that industry that you're in.
Well, let's make sure Kazunori pays us for that. So, okay, so now you're 24, and what was your first, like, what I'll call now success? Like, what's the first thing you remember where you're like, oh shit, it all starting to come together?
I think we should talk more about the failures of how I got there, because
I'd love that.
So, okay, so here we go. So main goal to be an actor, right? Acting.
Yep.
No social media, no internet. I don't even know what that is. No, I'm not doing it. I want to be an actor, right? How do you become an actor? You have to study. So any field you want to do, study it. If you're trying to make it, study it is. If you're trying to do a restaurant, you're trying to do finance, you have to study what that profession is, right? So I'm studying acting, and not just studying acting, I'm studying acting careers. The theme that I saw, everything that was similar, was all these actors that were becoming big time, they all were doing stand-up. That's what they were doing. And I saw, it's like, okay, you do stand-up, you get discovered, then you get a sitcom. Then after that sitcom, you do your movie.
Then you meet Will Smith.
Yeah, then you meet Will Smith. So what was Home Improvement? Tim Allen.
Yes, Tim Allen.
You have Tim Allen, you have Martin Lawrence, Jamie Foxx, all these people, right?
Yep.
That are doing stand up, getting discovered, and doing all that. Queens, what's the guy's name? Kevin James.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm studying that format, right? And I'm saying, okay, this is what I need to do. So I started doing stand up. Started doing stand up in 2010. So I don't know, 19, whatever. So I started doing stand up, right? Doing stand up, I'm not getting fucking discovered like I studied. What the fuck am I doing wrong, right? So I'm like, shit, okay, this isn't working. Then
Were you
I
doing
started.
stand up at clubs at that time? Or
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
like local, like improv?
Local clubs.
Yeah.
I'm performing at TGI Fridays. I'm
Okay.
performing in hotel lobbies. I'm performing everywhere, right? Now I started looking as well on the internet because now YouTube is becoming a thing. There's a guy named Donald Glover, who's Childish Gambino. He was in a comedy group on YouTube called Derek Comedy. A lot of people don't even know this. Donald Glover came from YouTube. He was doing his YouTube sketches on YouTube, and a couple years later, he goes to New York and he writes for a show called 30 Rock.
30 Rock.
30 Rock.
Yeah.
So he's a writer for 30 Rock. Then a year later, he moves to LA, and now he's cast on a show called Community.
Yep.
So I'm like, oh shit, maybe I should start doing YouTube videos. So I start making YouTube videos. And I'm making a bunch of YouTube videos. And I'm putting in all my effort and money and everything, and I'm getting 300 views. Oof. I call my mom and I'm crying. I'm trying everything, it's not working. There's such good quality. I'm in film school, so I'm learning how to direct. I'm doing everything. I'm literally learning how to direct. I can't hire a director to shoot these.
Yeah.
I can't hire a writer. So I'm learning how to write, direct, produce. I'm doing everything. Then after that, there is 2013. So this is 3 years later. So 2010 to 2013. Okay, so I'm in film school, 2010 to 2012. New York Film Academy, learning how to direct, write, act, all that stuff, right? Getting my master's program. Now, 2013 comes, an app called Vine comes out, right? And at this point, like, my bank account is gone. My parents call me. They say, you have a year left. If you don't make it in a year, you're coming back to Florida.
Wow.
I grinded in I think 2 months later, I went from 3,000 followers to 1 million followers. Just like that.
On Vine.
On Vine. So when I started from the phone call, it was 2 months. But when I started on Vine, it was a month. So
what was it? What happened in that month?
I studied. I took all those failures and learned. Like I saw what I was doing in YouTube. I saw what I was doing this. I saw what people were doing on Vine, what was working on Vine, what wasn't working on Vine. So I learned how to create viral videos just by studying it. I had a year left and my dreams were gone forever. So I was up every night. I had a calendar on my wall. I said, okay, when I did this video, it got me 400 followers. I do this video, it got me 200 followers. I'm not doing that video again. I do this video, it got me 1,000 followers. Oh shit, let me do more videos like this. I do this video, it got me 70,000 followers. So I was doing, I had a chart, literally I had a chart on my thing, and I would see, okay, I did this. So I got to the point where I was getting 70 to 80,000 followers a day. And I didn't stop. I just kept going and going and going. And then now I have the Guinness Book of World Record for the most Vine followers.
I didn't even know that about you. That's insane.
Yeah. So it's like, so that's how hard it's like I was going for it. And that's how many failures it took to get there. And keep in mind, I don't want to be a social media influencer. I'm still failing. I'm not an actor. I'm successful.
You're succeeding, but you're still failing.
I'm still failing. So I'm having the Vine followers, and then all the agencies want to sign me. All the top 3, they wanted to sign me. I went with UTA at the time, and you know, my first audition was House of Lies, right? And then I got it. I'm like, fuck, because in my mind, if I get something on my first, it's beginner's luck, right? So I was mad that I got it. Yeah, I was superstitious. So I was like, fuck, I got it. So yeah, I did 6 episodes of House of Lies with Don Cheadle. Me and Don were still cool to this day.
He's a cool guy.
Yeah, he's dope. And then, you know, I started doing more auditions, and then yeah, the reality set in. When I was doing the auditions, I wasn't getting. I was like, all right, yeah, this shit real now. So then, yeah, I'm doing 6 episodes, and at that time, I'm the first since Donald Glover. I'm the first no, I'm the first Vine star to do theatrical television or whatever
Yeah,
it's
like
called.
become a proper actor.
Right. Yeah. So I did 6 episodes of that. People were freaking out. It's like, how are you doing with Kristen Bell, Don Cheadle, Ben Schwartz?
Yeah, you're like side by side with some of the biggest names in
Yeah.
acting.
And then I'm doing my vlogs too, and I have all these A-list celebrities in my vlogs.
You like parlayed everything together.
Yeah, everything, right? And then I'm still doing auditions, and then boom, I do the Mindy Project with Mindy Kaling.
Yep.
So I do 6 episodes of that. Then I'm doing all these TV shows with all these like big actors and big names, and then stuff is coming up, and then a couple years later I do Shot Caller.
With us?
So yeah, with
Thank you. I can like take a little credit for your.
Yeah. So and
That was a good movie, by the way.
Yeah.
We all made money on that way. That was fun too.
yeah, people still talk about it to this day.
Good movie.
Yeah. So so yeah, that's what it took to get to that point. And this is besides Shot Caller, everything else was TV. I didn't want to be a TV star. I want to be a movie star. So
Yep.
I'm still failing, even though I'm succeeding. Even though nobody else on the internet is doing any type of TV stuff, I'm doing it. I'm still like, I'm failing, So so yeah.
And we're about to change that again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So here's what I found like really interesting, and what I try to do, and I learned so much from every guest we have on too, right? Because like I always say, I've failed so much in my life, and I've been lucky that I've done so much. And a lot of people just see success in a lot of like, oh, done this. Like when you were joking around about me hammering the walls, I'm like, oh, if you only knew, like when I first started Relativity, like, by the way, I digress stories a lot, just but when I first started Relativity and told people I was going to start a studio, they were laughing at me, right? And so I remember I couldn't make payroll. I had 3 employees. So I had the only asset I had in the world was a house up in the hills, like kind of on the valley side. So I would go in the weekends, and I'd go to Home Depot, and I'd tear apart the bathroom, and I'd retile it, and I'd go like drive down on auction, and this is before people like doing kind of cool custom like bathrooms. So I'd like buy like an old Indian trunk and put like a sink in it, and then I'd have the bank come and reappraise it and pull 20 grand out of my house, and then make my payroll.
Oh shit.
And so like, so I know how to
There
put
we go.
hammers in walls, and I was down there grouting and the whole 9 yards. But the reason I say that is, so I try to take every person, every guest we have on here, and like ingest it, and then like see if there's even a bigger story there. And here's something really interesting when I think about your story, right? So you brought up like, oh, where you're from, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, which is exactly when I grew up. My parents were like, no, you're gonna be a doctor or a lawyer. Or in fact, the joke in my family was they believe very much in higher education. My dad has like 8 degrees, but you can be anything you want. You can even be a trash man, but you can't go into Hollywood. That was the one.
Really?
Yeah, just because we had my uncle who was in Hollywood. He was a producer, and they just saw what a tough life it was, even for success. Like in success, it was even tougher, right?
Yeah.
Like it's toxic if you let it be, right? But all that being said, so all these people, I grew up here in LA, and everybody around me was, kind of same thing. Sounds like with you, it's like you go to your good high school, then go to your good college, you go into your pre-med, you go into med, you do your residency, then you do your internship, and then you pick your rotation, and then you become a doctor. And that's I think probably right there 30 years.
Yeah.
And now you got your career. So what's interesting to me is no one would say someone who at 30 years old, all of a sudden now they're a heart surgeon, failed for 30 years. They would just say that they come out $300,000 in debt. They've worked their ass off. They're having their first real job. They've basically not slept for the last 5 years, and now they're starting.
Yeah.
So why does the world look at it when someone decides to be more entrepreneurial? And entrepreneurial, when I say that, I don't just mean starting a business. It could be being an actor. It could be, as you said, starting a restaurant. It could be being basketball. And someone starts at 12 years old, and instead of saying, oh, I want to be a doctor, so I'm going to start reading, medical books and then go to pre-med, but says, I want to be an actor. And, you spent all that time learning.
Yeah.
And when you think about, you said something really interesting. I think I asked you, how did you figure out, Vaughn, like, how did you just make it work in a month? And you said, well, I just had failed so much at it and seen all the stuff that worked and didn't work. So to me, what that says is you spent 12 and a half, 13 years, the time normal people in their own careers that are going through like a normal career, I'll call it, as other people would say, they're the actor, the doctor or the lawyer, getting the education in how to be a heart surgeon, you were learning how to be an actor.
Yeah.
In that case, I guess how to be viral, that then was going to lead how to be an actor, right? Because when that person is in there, you don't want a heart surgeon who's killed 20 people before they go in, right? So what do? They go fail on cadavers first. They go fail on mice. They study before they're ever even allowed to touch anything real.
Yeah.
You went and you did everything real. You spent 10 years failing at it. And then you went and looked and said, okay, you realize I got like this short period of time. What did I learn?
Yeah.
And then you put that into, okay, this is what works. Because you created a formula, is what you basically said to me. You sat down, you wrote it down. This is working, this isn't. And within a month, your 12 years of formula like took off. But it was still failure because it wasn't what you wanted, but it got you to the next step because you knew you needed it, right?
Yeah. And then even there, it's like you have to convince yourself, but you have to, if you're a kid, you have to convince your parents, the people who are financing it and funding it, right? So, and I knew my parents were strict on education, so I was like, okay, if I want to be an actor, let me show them. Let me go to like acting schools. So I went to an acting school in Palm Beach, and I went to this one because Shia LaBeouf went to this school. So I was like, oh shit, Shia LaBeouf, let me go to that school. I go to that school. I find out years later it was a scam.
The school was?
The school was a scam.
Oh man.
So what they did was we all apply for this school. We pay X, Y, and Z amount of dollars a month. Then they say, okay, we have a big trip in New York. You fly to New York, and then you do one audition, and all these agents, they come see you. We did all that. They had agents come, but they weren't real agents.
So they like brought in bullshit fake people.
Yeah, they brought in bullshit fake people. They scammed all these people, all these parents. So they made so much money. They're shut down now. But yeah, so.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, I don't even think I told my parents that. I found out later online.
Do they know now?
No, they still don't know.
Our mom and dad, if you're just learning for the first time.
Yes. So it was crazy. So I'm going through stuff like that just to get to where I'm at now.
So, okay, you it's funny because you're like such a good example of someone who just knows what they want and doesn't deviate. And like so many people's, when you hear their career, even the successful people, they're kind of bobbing and weaving and they thought they were starting here and they ended up here and that's where their success came from, right? Yours is like, no, I knew I wanted to get here and you didn't veer. You might have like found a different path to get there, but you always went back on the path, which is incredibly unique because, so as you said, it's funny, you're still failing, even though like, anybody else in the world looks at you and you're like, I mean, he's a huge success, right?
Right, yeah.
But what you realized is you're like, okay, the path that I'm taking isn't working. So what is working? And you're like, you took this other step. You're like, okay, so I'm gonna have to go, as you said, you tried stand-up comedy, seemed to be the right way to go. That didn't work, but then going on to YouTube, which led to Vine. And then it's like, okay, now I got to create a formula to figure out how do I make it work on Vine? But that wasn't so you could become a social media star.
Right.
That was because you knew that was the next step to becoming an actor. And then you booked a TV show, not because you wanted to be in TV, but because you wanted to be a movie star, right? Yeah. And no matter what happened, like so many people that come on the show, their story, it deviates there, right? It's like, so I thought I was going to be an actor, but then I became this huge social media star and I, went over here, or I became a boxer and, then I became the #1 boxer and the story goes there.
Yeah.
Even Nigel, who did, American Idol and So You Think You Can Dance, he was a dancer. He wanted to dance. That was his thing, and a choreographer. And he ended up doing American Idol, right? Like, he didn't set out to do American Idol. He just set out because he wanted to dance.
Yeah, yeah.
So what in you, because that is such a unique drive.
Yeah.
And I won't put you on the spot with how old you are, but like,
35. Yeah.
All right, so, you're 35 years old. And so since you've been 12, so now for 23 years, my math is okay. For 23 years, you've not deviated. And that's something that's so rare that you just
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And you've basically, as you said earlier, manifested your own success. And every time you fail, you basically put it back into your formula and you figure out, how am I going to use that to succeed, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is it inside you that you just know? And no matter what happens, like you could easily have said, hey, I can just go make the best living ever just doing YouTube and, you know, comedy and, you know, just doing that all day. But you still know, no matter what, this is your path.
Yeah, I think it literally has to deal with how hard and how long it took me to get to where I'm at now. Even in middle school with Marco Chan, you know, seeing that, and then seeing other people. There was another guy. His name was Robert Johnson. He was in a commercial. He was in a commercial at 6th grade, and everybody would talk about it. Oh, he was in a commercial back in 6th grade. I was like, damn. I was jealous. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
You know. So I was always driven like that, and it got to a point where, you know, when it's just I'm so driven. It's like, if it's not purposing acting, I'm not doing it. Like you'll see I'm on social media, I'm on YouTube, everything, but you'll never see me do pranks. I'm
Right.
not doing pranks. If I'm doing anything, it's acting. It's a skit where I'm playing a character. I'm being somebody that's not me. I got offered to host big shows like TRL. Turned it down because, you know, it's if it's not scripted, I'm not doing it. And people have thrown major money at me, and I've turned it down because it's like, it's unscripted. No, if it's scripted, I'm in there. That's what I love to do. Like I would tell people, like, if I wasn't an actor, I'd just be that crazy guy that's walking down the street just doing characters, talking to himself. That would be me.
Go down to Venice Boulevard and put some skates on.
Yeah,
you know,
that would be me. Like that's the only way I can fuel myself is through that.
So what's really cool about that to hear is like you just know yourself, and very few people figure that out until they're a lot older. Like you know who you are and what makes you you. You're like, even like you said, you know, you could go get a ton of money doing an unscripted show, but it's just not you. Like you like to act your whole life since you've been 12. You've just not stopped and you've not given up, and you're not willing to sacrifice that. Like, you know, I didn't figure out who I was. I always say this till really I had kids. And then I figured out, like, this is who I am and this is how I'm comfortable in my own skin. And no matter what, no one's going to change me.
Right.
And like, even when I was on top of the world making, you know, 30 movies a year and 20 TV shows and being told I was, you know, the most powerful person in Hollywood and running the sports agency, even back then, like, I still didn't know exactly who I was. I was still like bobbing and weaving a bit and, you know, kind of like, you know, I don't want to say easily swayed, but definitely was able to say, oh, you know what, I'm going this way, but I think I like that way a little better. I'm going to change my plan a bit, right? And it really wasn't until I had kids that I was like, no, now I know exactly what I will and won't change in my life.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And you found this spot where you just know, like you said, you're not willing to compromise it. And that's super commendable. And I think, hopefully, like, I'm hoping kids who watch this, and not just kids, but anybody who watches this, like, sees that it's not about the money for you. It's not about the fame. Like, you're like, hey, you could go get a lot more money. Not that, you know, you're doing obviously just fine, and you know, you're very famous, but like, you could go get a lot more of that tomorrow, but it's not in the right way for you. So you're like, not, your moral integrity is standing there, right? And so, as you said, you're willing to stand in failure in a way, right? And stay in that failure until you hit the success versus doing what other people might perceive to be more success.
Right.
Is that like fair to say?
Yeah, 100%.
And how would you like to other people, if you were trying to speak to the audience and people who are like having these dilemmas of like, well, you know, because a lot of people value themselves on what other people perceive success as, right? And that's, I think, the biggest problem in our society is we judge ourselves not by ourselves.
Right.
But we judge ourselves by like how other people see us.
Right.
Do other people see us as successful? Do other people think we're doing it right? And what's the advice you would give to people when they're sitting there like, you know, doing something because other people think that's what, or they think that's what other people think they should be doing, or other people think or make them feel that's what their success is, versus internally they know they really want to be doing something else, but they're not.
Yeah, and I think that just becomes breaking it down to getting to know who you are. And a lot of people don't really know who they are yet. And the only way you can figure out who you are is by taking that time to yourself. You have to escape. I don't know if you take a trip somewhere, leave your phone away. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's 3 days, maybe it's whatever. But you have to isolate yourself and just figure out how to meditate, or just bring it all down and bring everything into perspective and know what your goals are. Know what's important is your family, your health. Like figure out what's really important, and then you'll realize like, oh, these other things, others' opinions doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is me. Take care of yourself, and then what makes you happy, and you'll find out what makes you happy. Maybe it's cooking. For me, it's learning. I like learning. I taught myself how to play the piano. If I ever feel like I'm stressed out, I'll find a song, a cover I want to learn. I'll learn that cover, I'll play, and it'll reset me. And okay, now I know my goals. Now I know what I need to do. So I think a lot of that is finding out who you are. There's triggers that make people upset, right? If someone says "fuck you," it's gonna make you feel a certain type of way. But you also have to realize there's triggers that can make you happy as well. It's your purpose to find out what those triggers are to make you happy. For me, it's listening to a certain type of music, and it's walking in nature. Right? So that's my happy trigger. So if I'm ever feeling depressed, down, I know to switch on that type of music, and I know to go to that certain park or forest or whatever, to reset. And then when you reset, you can say, okay, this is important. Your religion, your family, your this, your that, boom, boom, get down your list, and then your goals and your purpose, and then you can go back and walk in that faith that you have. But yeah, it first comes from knowing who you are.
Yeah, that's such good advice, and I hope people, like, coming from you, I really hope people like take it to heart, because that's going back to even when I was saying when I figured out who I really was. What I first figured out was I don't give a shit what anybody else thinks. I care what I think or feel. I care what my kids think, feel. I care what my parents think, feel. And maybe there's a group of like 8 or 9 people around me that I love, and I care about them.
Yeah.
And I could not care one shit outside of that, of what anybody else thinks.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter even the slightest, right?
Yeah.
And when you hit that spot, like, I don't know, the freedom of life. And I tell everyone, I'm like, I wish everybody could feel this, because how free you become as a person when you're just like, I really don't care.
Yeah.
Like, at all. It like, doesn't it faze me the littlest bit? What fazes me is like the people I love and care about.
Yeah.
And I know they love and care about me because they'll also tell me if I'm fucking up. So they're not the people around me that are like kissing my ass and telling me, oh, you're so great. Because I had a lot of those around me when I was like, up here. But they're the people who will look at you and say, like, no, that's fucked up. And you actually like tell you to your face, like, that's the person I love. And I wish more people could actually hit that spot that you found, where you're just like, because you said it kind of quickly, where you're just like, when I realized you should only care what you think, not what others think, right? And what the people who love you think, and what God thinks. And you, as you said, you found your way of getting there. If you get upset, you meditate, you go into nature, right? And people need to find their meditation, or they're going to nature, or they're playing a piano.
Yeah.
What do you think is the best way for someone who's like, going through a hard time, like right now, who's they're going through a moment of, whether it's they're depressed, they're trying to figure out what to do with their life, they're ready to give up, they feel like they're failing, they don't have that piano yet, they don't have that walk in nature, and they just feel like there's nothing that can help them. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, that's the challenge. That's the main challenge, to figure out what your happy trigger is. We all have the triggers that make us angry, but what's that trigger that makes you happy? It's like, maybe start off with the meditation. Maybe start off with a guided meditation. Maybe try that. Then you take it a step further. Maybe you try a guided meditation while you're doing yoga or stretching or whatever it is. But you have to find a way to bring your heart rate down and keep you calm. Because there's different types of meditation. You have the guided meditation, then you have the ones where you flex your body, every muscle really tense, and you loosen every one up slowly, like this, and then you can figure out, okay, so there's something physical in me that makes me relax. Because some people it's mental, some people it's physical. That's why you see a lot of people, they turn into fighters, they turn into boxers, because they find a way to release their stress by hitting a punching bag. So that's the hardest thing. The hardest thing is to find out what your happy trigger is. That's the hardest thing, but you just got to keep on searching.
How'd you find yours? How'd you find out that, I meditate like probably not joking 8-9 times a day. So like,
Yeah.
I know how for me it was, but how did you figure it out? And piano. And
Yeah.
how'd you figure all that out?
Mine was accidental. In film school, meditation was required.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we had a class just for meditation for our MFA program. So we did that, and I was like, "Oh shit, wow, that was crazy." Because I'm from Florida, we ain't meditating, bro. You meditate, you a fairy, bro.
Not unless you know Will Smith.
Not unless you know Will Smith.
Then you can meditate.
Yeah. So I was always opposed to it. I would never meditate. I was like, you meditate? No, I'm not doing that. But when I was forced to do it in film school, I was like, oh shit, and I found something that I never found before. I felt something I never felt before. So that was where I found the way to bring the heart rate down and calm myself. And the way I found out what else I liked was accidentally, I was just being by myself, just walking, and then I put on these headphones. They were, back in the day, they were the Beats headphones,
Yep.
so noise canceling, turn on certain type of music, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, I felt amazing. There was nobody else there. It was just me, the music. I was dancing. Like, if someone's looking, they'd be like, oh, this motherfucker crazy. But I found that, and now I know no matter what, it could be the worst day ever. I'd put on that headphone, put on that music, go into nature, I'm walking, I'm looking around. Maybe it's because I'm realizing what life is. This is God created all of this, the earth, the trees, the sky, everything. You're like, oh shit, this is what life is. It's like nothing else matters. You know what I mean? You realize like, oh shit, there's people in other parts of the world that can't get water, that can't get food, and then we're crying over, oh, my girlfriend broke the glass. It's over some stupid shit like
Spilt milk.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be upset over some things that aren't really that important. So it's something I found it accidentally, which is crazy. But
And piano, you just one day decided like.
I just love to learn. And then one day I think I was at Guitar Center and I saw some guy playing the piano. I was like, oh shit, that's cool. And then so I bought a piano that day, and then I went on YouTube. I learned how to play some songs, and I was like, shit. And the thing I loved about it is because maybe it's in my personality, my DNA, but I love the challenge. Like, I love failing so much. Learning how to play piano, you're failing all the time because anybody can play with one hand. Playing with two hands at the same time, it's a different part of your brain that you access. And that feeling of accessing that part of my brain where both fingers were moving at the same time and playing, I was like, oh, this is wild. I felt like I had a superpower. So it just opened up another thing of like, oh, to me, it's not just about playing the piano. To me, it was about being able to accomplish a goal, accomplish something that was extremely challenging. So to me, that's what playing the piano did. It showed me that, oh, you can accomplish anything you put your mind to. Because playing the piano with two hands, fucking hard.
Yeah,
So,
like really hard.
yeah,
Have you ever flown a helicopter?
never.
I want to take you flying sometime because that's part of my meditation. That's my piano playing.
Yeah.
And people used to think it was like, they'd be like, oh, they'd look at me wrong and think, oh, he's just a dickhead flying his own helicopter, some rich dude. But actually, no, like I'm obsessed with helicopter flying because it's my meditation. I don't have other people fly me. Like,
Yeah.
and
You're flying it?
I fly, and when I say I fly, like, so they used to, when I started flying, the first day I got in, they would say you can't fly for more than an hour at a time because your brain, it's all physics.
Mm-hmm.
You can't think about anything else. It's not like a plane where you type in digits and you can let go. Like you're doing like 50 things at once, right? And as I said earlier, I love physics, but they'd say after an hour in the beginning, your brain is too tired. And I'd go up and I'd fly for 6, 7, 8 hours a day. What? Literally. And then I went off to Hawaii in Maui. It's the hardest place in the world to fly because there's 30 knot crosswinds at any given time. Yeah. And so you'd be going this way, wind, this way, wind. And I went out there and flew with this guy, Pete, who basically does all the rescue and safety for, firefighting and, 5,000 feet rainforest, someone falls into a canyon. He's the guy landing on a, branch the size of that stick and getting them out. And I go up 5, 6, 7 hours a day and fly with him. I'd wake up at like 6 a.m. I was I would eat, dream, and sleep flying helicopters.
Really?
Yeah, and even my worst of days, like getting it's like when you talk about how you felt playing piano.
Yeah.
First of all, it's an accomplishment like every time because you're completing something, and you can always get better. But like it's also like you're using both feet, both hands, fingers, eyes, ears, and everything you're doing at every second. Like if I move one thing in any direction, something's happening with the helicopter. If I let go of this hand, the helicopter's dropping. If I let go of this hand, we're going to the side.
Really?
Like if I move my left hand a quarter inch, the helicopter's going to go like that, quarter inch. And if I pull up a quarter inch, we're going to shoot straight up. And so, you know, I get that, and I got lucky also because actually someone just gave it to me as a gift. They're like, hey, it was like my birthday or something. I got you an hour flying lesson in a helicopter, and I was like,
wow.
I was like, I'm good. And they're like, no, you should try it. And it was like, that was it. I actually set, I'm trying to, I said, try and, Guinness reached out to see if you talked about being in Guinness for Vine, putting me in as the fastest commercial helicopter license ever. But because there's no worldwide standard, they decided that to like compare it to, that they couldn't put it in. But I did set the record, which is, I got my private license, which is not the world record. From the first day I got in to the day I got the license, 30 days. So,
what?
Yeah, which is 40 hours of flying, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot early. But commercial, meaning you're legally allowed to go out and get paid to fly people, right? Which is much harder standard. It's 200 hours, but there's all these other things. You have to solo, you have to do all these emergency landings, you have to do cross country, average of 2 years. I got my commercial 60 days after I got my private. So 96 days from the first day I stepped foot in a helicopter. And which is like unheard of. Like it was just like, in fact, my FAA examiner, who was the same guy that gave me my private, when I walked in from my commercial, he looked at me like, like just don't even try it. Like, so you have to do like an interview, a written test, and then flight test, right? And I'd done the flight test, I'd done the written test and aced it, and my instructor was with me, and he looks at that and he goes, listen, if you fail him, you fail him. I don't bring students here that don't deserve it. And you know, he's the guy had done it, you know, for 40 years, and he's like, just give him the shot. Be as hard as you want on him. And he's like, oh, I am. And literally, he took me up to fail me, and I didn't fail. I got it. I became fastest commercial ever. And but yeah, you would love it because, as you were talking about, you know, having to coordinate all these things, it's a perfect harmony.
Yeah.
And it's like that, you know, using two hands, because so this hand, depending on if it's a European helicopter or a non-European, depending, you know, what side you sit on. But so call this hand, you're holding the cyclic, so that you're controlling the blade pitch. And basically that's kind of tilting the helicopter forward, back, left, right. This hand, you're actually pulling the speed, how much gas you're giving the blade, so fast it's going, but you're also controlling the rotor pitch, so it puts you going like leaning forward or leaning back more.
With your right hand?
With your both, you're doing both because there's a regulator.
Oh shit.
Your feet control the tail. So you know the blade on the tail? So that is the direction of the tail. And then there's a bunch of other things at the same time you're doing, but interesting enough is then when you get into a hover, it all changes. So that's when you're out of ground in the air. But when you're what's called in ground, so now the actual wind is hitting the ground and bouncing back up, everything changes. Now your feet actually control the whole helicopter.
Really?
And yeah, it's the craziest thing. So you should come up one time. It's
yeah.
You'd love it.
All right.
You'd love it.
Down.
So totally digressing into something that I haven't done on the show before, but you've said like a few things that make me feel like you're like there. So, you know, I keep talking about how I'm very science minded, but I'm also like very, I read a lot about physics and metaphysics combining. So I read a lot about like dimension and, you know, I'm Jewish, so I'm religious, but I'm also like very metaphysical. And, you know, you started out, you talked about how your future self was talking to your current self, and it's part of what you knew. And so, what's very interesting is, I don't know how much of this you know, but like part of relativity and Einstein's theory is that time is a construct. So there is no time, right? When someone says, 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, it's like the same thing, at least in science mind, as saying I'm going from LA to New York.
Right.
In our minds it goes forward, but it actually doesn't exist in the kind of overall realm without space. Like there is no 5 to 6. So the other thing that's very interesting about that is when you look at people like Tesla and we're not talking about Elon Musk, Tesla, who said frequency is the basically the existence of everything. And then you go into today where world scientists talk about superstring theory, which is saying that every part of everything is made up of vibrating little strings that are basically music, right? And you put that all together, and when I was listening to you talk, what you basically have just explained is modern physics.
Yeah.
Which is like the concept that we're experiencing every path at the same time. Our bodies can't quite comprehend that, and we're living out every kind of probable possibility, and every minute kind of exists at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So when you're like, your future self is just telling your current self, like, and because you meditate, because you talk about being in nature, and you're talking about music, it sounds like you're very in touch with that like metaphysical side. And I would look at it and just be like, you're like much more connected to the energy, as I look at it, in the world and in nature and in the universe. And that helps you probably more so than most people to understand what's going on around you, and almost, I don't want to call it manipulate in a bad way, but understand that failure's inevitable, and yet the path, right? And you just know the path because you're living it all at the same time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I've never brought that up with other people on the show. But
yeah, it's crazy because it's crazy because I don't try and tell nobody my secrets, but I kind of view time, I guess the easiest way to explain it to someone who doesn't really understand that is I look at time as circular, meaning like the same way you can remember what you did yesterday, we're able to remember what we do in the future.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay. So, and here's an example, right? I made the short film Miles Rider, whenever I made it, and my parents were like, what are you doing? Why are you making this short film? I said, I don't know. I just know I'm supposed to be making this. I don't know why I'm making it. I'm just making it. And it wasn't hard for me to make. I wrote it in less than a day. I shot it in 2 days and I edited it. And then one day, Dan, he was like, oh, Ryan is doing these films. You should have a FaceTime with them or a Zoom meeting with them. So we do the Zoom meeting, and you were like, what are you working on? Da, da, da. I was like, oh, shit, I actually made this short film. I got a trailer. You want to see it? And then you were like, what the fuck? Yeah, let's do that. So all that, if I were to not tap into that and be like, all right, they said, don't make this short film, stick to the social media, stick to doing this, like stick to doing auditions and stuff, I would have never done that, right? So I don't know what it is, but I remembered the future. And look where we are. You can't say it don't work, motherfucker.
So honestly, that is, you're like talking Einstein's language. So Einstein actually would say there is no difference from saying like it was 6:59 or it's going to be 7:01. Like going to 7:01 is exactly the same thing. Let's say it's 7 o'clock right now. Exactly the same thing as 6:59. And it's even going deeper now, which is that there was no before and there is no after. There is only now. Like it's which is a whole other realm. So have you ever heard of it's quantum entanglement, but have you ever heard of the observer effect?
What's that?
So quarks and small, I'm going to piss off every physicist that watches this because I'm not going to say it exactly right. But basically, we've obviously at CERN and the other places, we've been able to study what happens at the smallest level of particles and we always think we got to the smallest, we get smaller, but at speeds of light, right? And so there's this thing called the observer effect and Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. And what that basically says is we can't know where a small particle, called an atom, but it's not an atom because you can do it with an atom, but it's much smaller, like a boson or a quark, where it is and where it's going at the same time. I mean, we can't see it. And the reason you can't see it exactly, you can only know around where it is or where it's going, is the act of observing it changes it. So it's a big thing in science where they're like, there's a lot of theories around it, right? But like, so let's say, and you can actually do these studies where you turn away from it and you don't turn away from it. So the way it acts, these particles that we're not touching, act differently if you're watching them or not watching them.
What?
Yeah, every particle.
Really?
So here's where it gets weirder. So there's something called quantum entanglement, and Einstein used to call it the spooky effect. He actually knew about it, but didn't see it. We in our lifetime see it now all the time, which is if you entangle particles. So when I used to explain this in like 2011, before it was like a more commonly known thing, I used to be like, yeah, you basically have two protons, like basically fuck, and then pull them apart. And people are like, what? I'm like, they have sex. Like,
Right, yeah.
you put two protons together or quarks and you pull them apart and you send them the speed of light, opposite directions. And you basically turn this one to the right. This one faster than the speed of light will move exactly the same. And nothing can go faster than the speed of light. It's completely impossible. And all that means is that there's a field or something that's connecting them, i.e. us, that we can't see. Because it is physically impossible under physics to go faster than the speed of light. So the only explanation is something is connecting them that causes that, right? Now that's what we're made of.
Yeah.
Right? So you connect all of that and put time in there.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is exactly right, which is like you are seeing effectively the future, maybe not like literally seeing it, but you're feeling it and you're letting it guide you. And so, I always tell people this, which is like, be more open to it. Like open it's not just open your eyes and ears, but it's like open this eye, like, and don't like the more negative you get and the more you let these things hurt you and other people affect you, the more you're closing off to all that, right?
Yeah.
And the more you can just open yourself to the universe and let it in, the more you see that and you understand that path, right? And I think you nailed it. Like you know what's happening in, on April 1st, 2027, right? Like,
Yeah. And that goes to answer, I didn't answer that before, but when you said, why are you so focused? Why are you so driven? It's because of that. Like, I just, you know what I mean? Like, that's a part of the answer. I just didn't want to go into that, but.
So what date are we going to start Miles Rider? Getting this, now on the show, we're doing some psychic readings. I like this. What date we're going to start?
Oh man, we got to tap in. We both got to combine our energy on that one.
My prediction is September. September of this year.
I like it.
By mid-September, we'll be in production. That's my guess. What do you think?
You heard it here.
And by the way, like, it's not like you know where we are on it. Most people would say, oh, it sounds pretty aggressive.
Yeah, no, I think we can get it. Because what's crazy is the same way that we did this, I think we nailed it with the director. Like, he is passionate. Like, he's been texting me with ideas. Like, he's so
you can share here if you want. We haven't really shared with the world. We did share. I mean, we announced Miles Rider, but why don't you tell everybody a little bit about it, since it was your original idea?
Yeah.
And what it kind of is, and then we can maybe talk a little bit about what the characters become, because it's cool.
Yeah. So the idea of Miles Rider came about like just making a short film. I wanted to do something action, and I saw that the action space was missing the African American type of actor. So I was like, how can I fill that gap? So I got my buddy Steve Brown, who stunt coordinated Avatar.
Avatar 2, the last one.
All of them.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, all of them. He did the Wolverine. He's done
Mangold.
he's doing Superman now.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's doing all these things, and we lived in the same apartment together. So he moves off to do all these things. I'm like, yo, why don't we he's on break. So I was like, yo, you want to help me do this short film? He's like, yeah, I'd love to. Helps me, does it brings all the Avatar guys.
Yeah.
They're doing it. You've seen the stunts. It's crazy.
That's how we got this movie.
Yeah.
That skit.
So it came out great. And I'm not a writer. You know what I mean? I learned how to do things just to get by, because that's what I needed to do from all the failure. So I knew that I needed to write this and direct it and produce it and do all that. Got it done, and it came out great. And then we showed it to you. We got a writer to do a polish, to make a
Great
feature.
writer. Yeah. He did a great job.
Greg Russo killed it. He did Mortal Kombat. So he killed the script. Then we got director attached to really hone in who the character is, and we fucking nailed it. Cause you got
Tell us about who the character is, because I love this character. Like I feel like we've crafted him together a bit, and like I watched him grow.
Yeah.
And now he's such a cool character.
Yeah. So the character, he's gone through a lot of like I guess turmoil through the past. He lost his family, he lost his dad, all of that stuff. But think of like Will Smith in Men in Black, like that cool guy. He's unique. He's charismatic. He's your boy Batch. He kicks ass, take names, and it's just, I'm just so happy to actually put a character like this to life, because we haven't had anybody like these guys in film. Like, what's going on? Nobody's doing it. So this is gonna be great, because people are gonna it's gonna refresh the brand of action comedy.
You know what I love about it? Because like I think Men in Black, which is one of my favorite films, I wouldn't call it an action comedy. Like you say someone Men in Black, you're like, it's an kind of action sci-fi film.
Action sci-fi, yeah.
But it is a comedy, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people who don't like action sci-fi, or who don't like sci-fi, still love Men in Black, right? Mm-hmm. Because the sci-fi part is a little bit of a, it helps the backdrop. But what I love about Men in Black is the character, right? So Will Smith's character in that. Mm-hmm. And I think, what I love about this character is like, he's almost superhuman.
Yeah.
Almost. I think we originally were modeling him after John Wick a bit, right? Mm-hmm. So he's as superhuman as John Wick is, right?
Yeah.
But he's got that kind of like humor and that like fun ego of Will Smith in Men in Black.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, we haven't had that guy.
Right.
Like, and that's but even because I think he's a little more John Wick than Will Smith was in Men in Black, mm-hmm. right? Will Smith was still badass, but this is like, almost superhuman, right?
Yeah.
And I just love that we've really, you and the team have honed and created this character that's, I think, something nobody's ever seen. And he's going to be funny, but he's going to be badass. And, I think it's going to be a big franchise.
Yeah. Oh, we know. We can see
the future.
We remember the future.
We remember the future. I came across this Instagram account, actually, and I texted this girl because she writes these almost like prophecies. Mm-hmm. And then she says her name is Sarah. I forgot her account name. She's like, my name is Sarah, and I remember the future.
No way.
Yeah. And she says, like, in this date, this is going to happen. And she literally ends every video where she literally says, my name is blah, 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 and I remember the future. And like, I actually hit her up and texted her. And I was like, I'd love to just talk to you more, just to understand, like, because her stuff is very on point. Like,
really?
It's pretty crazy. But
damn.
Yeah, no, she has a big following too. She did then ask me for like, told me that she consults people for $100,000 a month. So I did go, yeah, well, maybe there's something off here. But other than that part,
yeah. Damn, $100,000 a month.
Yeah,
she's making a good living.
Well, yeah, future's pretty cheap.
Damn,
or expensive.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to keep you too long here, and you've been so great with your time. There's two things I want to jump into before we kind of wrap up, and one is, even though it's a step in your path, is comedy, right? Mm-hmm. Again, it's not your end goal, but you are so synonymous with comedy. Mm-hmm. I'm sure a lot of people look up to you in the comedy world who want to be comedians, right?
Yeah.
So because you've hit that success, somewhat, I don't want to say by mistake, because it was a purposeful part. It was purposeful in your journey, but not your end goal, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, what would you say to them as advice? So, like, people who are just trying to make in comedy, and since that's something that obviously is a very hard field to make it in, and you gotta have talent, you gotta be noticed, you gotta, there's just so much at it. Like, what's the biggest advice you'd give someone?
The biggest advice is to study it. You have to realize that comedy is a science. It's that's why you have a lot of people that they say like Eddie Murphy is a comedic genius. It's because he knows the science of it. He knows the science of the setup and the punchline. There's certain words that people gravitate to just laugh towards. There's certain facial expressions you can do to make people laugh. It's like a baby. You do a certain face in front of a baby, they start to laugh. It's like you figured out that science to make the baby laugh. Now you have to figure out the science to make a toddler laugh, to make a teenager laugh, to make a grown adult laugh, to make an old person laugh. It's like you figure out what that is, and a lot of it is based off of either their background, what they went through, the struggle. So that's why you'll see a lot of people who went through struggle who can make a lot more people laugh, because the majority of people deal with struggle. So you can relate to those people. So a lot of my comedy came from the struggle, because I was struggling so much throughout my life that I'm able to relate to those people who struggled as well. It all comes from knowing who your audience is. So like, if you didn't come from struggle, you came from, the upper or the middle or whatever, you know how to make those people laugh. There's people for every type of situation, every walk of life. So stay true to who you are. Don't try and change and be somebody else that you're not. Stay true to who you are, and there's always an audience for your type of people.
That's good advice. I mean, I don't know much about comedy, but like that's,
Yeah.
I didn't really thought about it that way. Like, pick your lane.
Yeah, because think about it. You could be you could write comedic things for helicopters. You know everything about helicopters that would relate to every single pilot.
Right. Pilots would find it funny.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's a really that's a really, really good, like, interesting, because you also then, I guess when you get better at that, you start moving into other people's lanes and saying, okay, now I'm going to try that other stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because then you could do helicopter pilots. Then you can do airline pilots. Then, you could do F1 drivers.
The last piece, which I try to always ask, everyone is, so, a lot of people watching right now, they're down, they're kind of just looking for anything. What do you say to them?
Looking for anything to
just grab onto their low point in life, something bad's happened to them, they're lost their job, they lost a family member, they're just, grabbing on to hope.
Yeah, it's got to be either spiritual, whether it's your spirituality, your religion, your family. Grab onto those things that will always be there for you, and look within yourself as well. Look to find what's really important to you. Like, what's really important. Like, it's not the fancy car, it's not the jewelry, it's not this. It's like, what really does make you happy. It could be a favorite food item. Maybe it's like you like, I don't know, let's just say an acai bowl from this restaurant or this store that's like 10 miles away. Like, take a day and go take that journey and go get that, and look how long it took you to get that and taste it and like enjoy it. But take that time to like find what really makes you happy and go after it.
That's great advice. Take that first, just look into the things that matter most and the people that matter most and yourself that matters most, right? And then if you need to take a small step, pick something small.
Yeah.
Just like you said, as small as an acai bowl that you love, just take the drive and enjoy it, right? And realize what's important in life, because you don't take it with you and time's short, Well, I want to say thank you, my man, for being here. I'm excited for our journey together, and I remember the future, so we have a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
And Will Smith.
Oh yeah, I do now.
I know. You could tell your mom, I do know Will Smith.
I know.
In the future. She could go back and tell her that in the past.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for joining Failure, and just remember, we're here for a short period of time on this world, and we're here to really make a difference for ourselves, not for anybody else, for ourselves. And it is better to be the man in the arena, to be marred in dust and tears and blood and sweat, and to come short time and time again, and maybe fail and maybe succeed, than to never know a victory or defeat and be a cold, timid soul in the corner. It's really easy to be a critic, really easy to be a critic. But as Churchill said, it's not the critic who counts. It's people like this man here who see what they want, see the future, see the important things, never give up, and they aren't swayed by the critic. It makes them stronger. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a failure, and we'll see you soon.